All right. So when we look at our game, we see a lot of just it's a lot. It's very busy, right? There's a background. There's all these elements, and within this, there's like this. We haven't finished these platforms, things like this. Even this is very poppy, and it's like, well, why is this so poppy? But when I click on this guy here, he looks very muted. And there's a way to really get all of these things to even out, and that has to do with with doing lighting inside of Unity. So if you want to do anything with 2D lighting, we have to set up a universal render pipeline, and that's this right here. Now, if you click on edit and project settings and you don't see it in here, you can click this, and they should have one set up in here for you to click on. So select it if that's absent. Um, Also, I believe we can just, yeah, it should be in your settings. So if I click on this, you see it pops up here. So it's in my settings folder by default. Now, even in the settings folder too, do you see how when I click on Universal Render Pipeline, there's this render list, this render 2D data? It should be in there by default. And so this is going to give us additional settings that we'll get into a little bit later on how to control the lighting in our scene. Now, if you don't see it in here, you can right click really anywhere in your asset settings, go to create, look for rendering, and then you can create a URP 2D renderer file. And we'll be needing that later. And then once you create that, you can select your universal render pipeline here and you could plug it inside of here by clicking this. Now you can see here, I have a new one in here that I created earlier, but this is the default one that's in there. And so you might be wondering, well, why do certain of these objects or these 2D image things like we have our portal, our mushroom enemy, our jump icons, why do they look differently when we drag them in there? Well, if you look into this material slot here in the sprite renderer, you can see that this one is set to general material. And this just kind of happens as you're dragging them in. And some of the other ones, let's see. We select our mushroom art, set general. It's like this background. General. I guess they're all kind of set to the same. This one doesn't even have. Here we go. You could see that this particular character, it by default added this sprite lit default material. Now, what I'm saying here is, um, depending on the type that we drag in, it adjusts it, and only certain materials can accept lighting. So, for example, if we go in here and we select our background here, and we go to general material here, we want to make sure that we always are doing sprite. Let's see, I think it's this one, default material. I could just copy, yeah. So what I'm going to do is select my character here and go to Sally Art, and in the sprites folder here, there's our, just click on that, and that's my sprite lit. You can also just type in sprite dash lit here, and did I spell that right? Oh, it's capital S. Sorry, it's case sensitive. So capital S sprite, and then dash capital L and assets. Where's this material? See, we have packages. Oh, so it's all the way down in packages. And see how we can access that. So sprite. In packages. I think we have to switch it there. And then we do dash lit. And we might not have to be as case sensitive. Yeah. So here's the material here. So essentially on each one of these, where it has the sprite renderer slot, you need to drag this in there. Or after you click on this, you can type in sprite here and then look for, we could even do scene. Let's see if we could type in sprite here. Yeah, I guess we have to do assets. Yeah, I guess because it's in our packages folder, we have to do it this way. So you could select multiple, like all of these jump icons here, and then you could switch, just drag in that sprite lit material. Same thing with this background here. And in our renderer here, let's see. And inside this material slot, drop this in there. And that should allow you to be able to access lighting. It looks like we definitely need to still grab these. Our portal. Where's our portal? Portal. and our Mushroom King, and then that jump icon. Just drag this into this. So now that material will allow us to access the lighting. Now, I might just switch one of them just to show you how it doesn't work, but that's probably the best way to essentially do this. So let me kind of demo that for you. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to light here. And you can see that down here at the bottom, we have Sprite Light 2D, Spotlight 2D, Global Light. Now the thing is, if you don't see these options, that means you don't have the previous step of the URP loaded. And reach out to me, we can go through it together. And I can help you out with setting it up if the previous step didn't work for you or it didn't make sense. So there's this Global Light 2D, and this works as sort of a sun. So if I take this all the way down the intensity, you can see that because we switched that material to Sprite Light default, and we didn't have it as like unlit or like these different. I think the other one was called General, I believe. General material. Oh, I guess general material does work too. My understanding that it didn't, but just for now, make sure to use. We'll just use the right material. I'm going to undo a couple. But with this global light in here, we can treat this as a sun, right? So here's our light 2D, and it's set to global here, and then we can increase the intensity. You can see right off the bat, we can adjust the lighting, the time of day. So say it's a cool day or a warm day. And then this serves as sort of a sun. And then we can control the intensity here. So I'm going to leave the intensity a little bit low because I want to show you some of the other lights in our scene. All right, so let's take a look at another lighting source. So I like to use a couple different lights. So I can duplicate this. Let's see. Yeah, let me duplicate this. And I'll name this like power up light. And generally for power ups, what I'll do is I'll use something called a freeform light. So you can either duplicate like I just did, or you can go to light here and you can go down to freeform light. And by just duplicating it, you can actually adjust which light it is by clicking on that. Now what's cool about a freeform light, and I'm going to press W to move this, is you can actually adjust the shape of this. So, and we'll talk about light order in a second, but like for example, if we select this jump power up icon, I'm going to make this maybe a child of this here. And you can see there's these little, like on our power up light here, if I click on edit shape, I can actually edit the shape of this light. So if I zoom out here, this kind of brings or draws the attention of the player to this specific location. And if I click on, you can see as I go close to this edge, it gives me a dot. So I can make something maybe like a star. And then depending on however I want to do it, I generally will just sample maybe like a color from the light itself. And then you can just adjust the intensity. And it'll only work in that particular area. A little bit more purple. If I click off of that, or turn off gizmos, for example, you can see we have like a kind of a custom light for that. So there's a way of accessing. We see that same thing. We can use a freeform light if we want. And actually, maybe this is a little bit too. Let's make this, just call this sun. It's a little too dark. All right, so let's duplicate our sun. And let's call this one spotlight. And what I'm going to do is move this maybe to the portal and switch this to spotlight. Now what's cool about a spotlight is it's probably what you are thinking of. Let's increase the intensity here. Let's increase the outer range. And what it does is it casts almost like a spot, like you have a flashlight or it's coming from a street light, and it's like coming directly flat, like radially on the scene. And with this, we can adjust the inner part. So, and then we have the outer part. So let me actually take my sun down a little bit So you can see that a little bit better. And same thing, it's just so you have this inner rim. So if we bring that all the way to 0, it just kind of controls the fall off between these 2 points. And here's the outer part. And that's how wide our light is. Fall off strength is, if we take it all the way down to 0, it's like almost like a hard flashlight. It feathers the edge or softens it depending on how strong that is. You can multiply it on top of other colors. You can make it additive, which will inverse the color below it or mute it. And I just generally do multiply because it takes the 2 colors and it multiplies them together. So it adds to the intensity of the color underneath. All right, so let's take our sun back up a little bit here. So we've got 2 lights going on. Now let's duplicate our spotlight, and actually let's just right click here and into our scene, and let's just make another light. We'll do a spotlight here. And this spotlight, unparent that from the child. I'm going to do game object move to view. And this one I want to be a cone spotlight on top of my mushroom girl here. So I'm going to increase the outer radius here, and I'm going to position it in the center here. And then what I'd like to do is see where it says inner and outer 360. If you pull this, you can see we get we can feather it like this. We can cone it that way. And we might have to rotate this down. So I'm going to rotate this on the Z 90 degrees. Let's do 180. And now we have a spotlight on our spider. Increase the fall off strength. Take that outer radius down. And now we have a little spotlight that brings attention to our mushroom girl. And we can grab another one and we can just put it above our king. And just adjust the outer radius here. Play with that cone a little bit. And then add some intensity. All right, so there are times when you don't want your lighting to affect everything in the scene. So I'm going to select Sally here, and I'm going to, under additional settings, sorting layer, I'm going to click on default and add a sorting layer, and I'm going to call this player. And what I'd like to do in here is we have this spotlight here, which, let's see, where's the spotlight? Let's see, we have light 2E, and we'll call this one spotlight. And then we'll just do like MG for mushroom girl. And I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call this spotlight player. Now the thing is, if notice how that made her brighter, and so I want a spotlight to follow my player around, but I don't want it to, as my character's walking around, it just blows everything out. So first, let me go ahead and take this all the way to 360. Just reset this light, and then increase the intensity here. Fine. Just make a new spotlight. It's acting funny. And you know what? I'm going to grab all of these lights and right click and then do create a empty parent. Just call this light. And then inside of here, I'm going to create another 2D light. Spotlight 2D. I'm going to call this player light. All right. And let's like do game object, move to view. And then let's increase the intensity of that. Let's make it a child of Sally, actually, because we want it to follow Sally around. And increase the outer area. And I also don't want it to make Sally blown out, but I just want to bring attention to Sally. Like that. So if I go to, remember we made a layer and we put Sally on it. Let's see. Let's go to Sally Art. We want to put Sally in that sprite renderer on the player layer, right? And then we want to adjust the player layer, this player art light that's going to follow it around. And you can see it says we have different stuff. We have target, sorting layer, everything. If I uncheck player, well, here, if I do nothing here, you could see it lights nothing. But if I go to environment, you could see it lights the environment, which we really should select our both backgrounds here, and then sorting layer, make sure that it's on environment here. And so it'll light the environment, but not Sally. And then that way, if I go to my sun here, I can increase the intensity. And I really just want that intensity of that light to affect just Sally. And then that light can follow her around. Now let's make that a little bit bigger. I think it's too small. Something else we can do that I think might make this pretty cool is um, say I want the player to always just be always lit. I can change it from the sprite lit default to, let's see if I can get to that light unlit. Yeah, sprite unlit. And then that way now she's not affected by lighting at all, and she's sort of always in focus. And then I just have this like halo light kind of following her around. You can see like I've got this light following her, and something else I've noticed is this mushroom here is not marked as grounded. Because remember, we have all of this stuff marked as ground for anything we can jump on. If we select our mushroom enemy here and we mark it as ground, we should be able to jump off the head of the enemy, and it shouldn't make us feel like we are, like we're like trapped. Still feel. I just say that, and I'm still trapped. Let's try that one more time. I'm gonna jump on the head of that little mushroom guy. See, because he's marked as grounded. All right, back to lighting. All right, so let's actually grab this light. Here, let's go to our light here, and let's duplicate this and put it on top of our mushroom guy. And what we want to do is maybe we want to cast shadows from this mushroom, from this light. So what we have to do is with this selected, you have to turn on shadows and turn on strength. And then on our mushroom enemy here, you have to turn on, you have to add a component, and it's called Shadowcaster 2D. And now you can see it took on the shape of this, of the actual, like our mushroom enemy object. Like, do you see how it's kind of breaking through, and it's just selecting here the let's see, the just the shape because it's on a PNG layer, but we want it to give us the shape of that mushroom. So you might be like, well, how do I do that? Well, that's what this edit shape is here. If I turn this on, I can actually click on this and I can shape out roughly the size of that mushroom character. And now you can see, and if you like tedious stuff, like this is kind of like I do. Like I really do enjoy sort of doing stuff like this. And now you can see if I click off of that, we now have a shadow. And you could adjust essentially the distance of that shadow. So let's see how soft shadows. It gives us a nice look. I mean, it gives us a nice little gradient there. But and then we can adjust our light shape up here, which one is that light? I need to call this mushroom light. I'll do ME for like mushroom enemy spotlight. You can increase the intensity and just pull in that outer a little bit if you don't want it to go through the ground. So something like that. All right, so let's think of, there's another way of making these objects pop, and I'll use this as an example. So go ahead and find your jump icon here. And what we're going to do is generate something called a normal map, which adds bumpiness and light information to the object. So go ahead and click on jump power icon here, which is the image. And I'm just going to hit Control D on this. And it's fine if it says it's a locked workspace because I have a version control on this. And I'm going to change this to jump power icon. underscore NM for normal map. We can do is change this from sprite 2D UI to normal map here. Select this create from grayscale. This is we're going to create a normal map from the sort of the lack of color information. Like if we were to grayscale this image, so it's actually turning it into a grayscale image, and we're going to do smooth to smooth it out. And then all you have to do is hit apply, and then you get this image. And this is kind of this image uses the red, green, and blue information to create a bumpy surface. So you can see inside of here, you're going to, well, we'll see it in a second. Let's hook it up. So on our original image, we need to add this normal map to it. So go ahead and click on Sprite Editor, and then type in secondary textures, and then hit the plus sign here. And we're going to go with a normal map, and then click on this. And we want to look for, I'm just going to see if NM pops up. Yeah, because we put NM at the end. And I'm going to hit add that, and you have to make sure you mark this as a normal map. Then I'm going to hit apply. Now when we go back into our scene, let's go back to our, let's see, jump power up icon here. Yeah, let's see. Data here. Oh yeah, that's right. So we have our light here, which is our, let's see. We need to name these better. Oh, you know what? It's underneath our jump icon here. So under our icon here, you have to turn on normal map, and you have to enable it to, and I usually put fast. And you can see as I move this around, you can see that there's like height information changing. Let me actually move this light over here for a moment. And let me try a different light. So we're going to create a spotlight. And then I'm going to do game object move to view. Oh, it's not a 2D spotlight. Spotlight 2D. There we go. And I'm going to hit Control Shift F, which is, or Control Alt F, which is this thing here. So we don't want to do a sprite light. I didn't go over that, but spotlight here. See if we can get that normal map to pop a little bit more. You can sort of see a little bit of height information on the top. Something like this. But generally it adds a little bit more, like it gives it more surface information. Like it makes it pop a little bit more. And if you have something, like maybe this background, we'll do it one more time for this one. I'll duplicate this. And then I'll convert this to a normal map. Create from grayscale, smooth, and we'll crank this way up just to see if, and that converted it. It might look a little ugly, but I just want you to see, see it working. So select that hills, and then side of here, we'll go to sprite editor, and then we'll do secondary textures. We'll add a normal map here, and grab our hills here. If you click on it, you can see what that height information will look like. If you click here, I'll hit apply, and I'll close this out. And then for our sun, let's see if we can add a normal map component to that. Or is it only on these guys? It might only be on that, because the sun is just really meant for filling the scene with light. So we'll grab this spotlight and move it around a little bit. We'll turn on, there we go. And you could see, yeah, that a little bit better. Do you see how it added that height information? So even with this spotlight that's following her around, what we can do to add some personality as our character is jumping around, you can see the world kind of changes a little bit, and it adds more personality. The intensity is a little bit too much, and it blows out the scene. So that's what a normal map does. Essentially, add a little bit of bumpiness to give your scene more character. So really, as we build this out, you can see how we can use lighting to really just sort of give our scene personality and you know just all that good stuff. That's really sort of a basic view of how lighting works in 2D inside of Unity. We'll talk and discuss during class like how you would use lighting or different lighting temperatures and all that good stuff. But yeah, this is just kind of a quick way of doing this. You can think about doing things like if you have a lantern in your scene and using this for fire, just coming up with other cool ways of setting up lighting, things like that.